Hey guys, yeah, welcome back to my channel today. Thank you so much for stopping by. In this video, we'll be cutting and sewing this dress that you can see on your screen. So I used about 3.5 yards of fabric to achieve this style. The upper bodice of the dress I used 1.5 yards, while the lower bodice I used 2 yards. So we'll start by cutting out the upper bodice first. I've gone ahead to fold my fabric into 4, leaving the zipper allowance at the back because I want to cut both the front and the back together. So the first thing I did was to take half of the shoulder measurements I'm working with, and then on that point I'm going to go down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. I'll slant from that point into the neckline area. So your zipper allowance can be 1.5 inches, it can be 2 inches. After doing that, I'm going to go ahead and start taking my points. The first point is distance from my shoulder to my bust point, which is 10 inches. The next point is distance from my shoulder to my waist point, which is 16 inches. The last point is the distance from my shoulder to my upper hip. So what you do is to place your tape on your shoulder and you're going to go down to your upper hip. You're not going to the hip, you're going to where the upper bodice of the dress is supposed to stop. It's going to be above your hip, okay? So once you measure that, you're going to mark that and you rule straight lines across just like you see me doing. So the next thing I'll do is to go down by my armhole depth, which is 8 inches. So I'll mark my 8 inches. After doing that, I'm going to rule a straight line across the 8 inches mark. This line is going to serve as my chest line. The next thing I'll do is to take the same measurement that I have on the shoulder line, which is 8 inches. I'm going to place the same measurement on the chest line and I'll connect the 2 dots into a straight line like this. After doing that, I'm going to place my tape on the straight line. You can see that the straight line stopped on the 8 inches. I'm going to mark the middle, which is 4 inches. On that 4 inches mark, I'm going to come in by half an inch, and then I'm going to place my bust circumference divided by 4 on the chest line. After doing that, I'll use my ruler to connect from the shoulder slope to the half an inch, and from there to meet the dot that I have on the chest line like this. The next thing I'll do is to take my neck measurement. So for the neck width, I'll be using 3.5 inches because I want it to be a bit open. And for the neck depth, I'll take about 2 inches for the front because you can see it's an high neckline, or you can do 2.5 inches. I decided to do 2.5 inches. So I'm going to connect from the 2.5 inches to meet the 3.5 inches width. And for the back, I'm going to do 1.5 inches. So the neckline is not that deep, it's kind of high. So I'll be using 1.5 inches for the back. I'll connect from the 1.5 inches to also meet the 3.5 inches like this. The next thing I did was to contour the zipper area. So my zipper allowance is 1.5 inches. I placed my tape on the waistline and I reduced the 1.5 inches by 5 inches. So what I have on the waistline now is 1 inch. I connected it upward and I connected it downward. So I'm going to trim that part out. After doing that, I started placing my measurement. On the chest line, I already have my bust circumference divided by 4. So I added 2 inches for my stitching allowance. On the waistline, I placed my waist circumference divided by 4. I also added 2 inches for stitching allowance. On the upper hip line, go ahead and measure around your upper hip and then divide it by 4. After doing that, I also added the 2 inches that I added on the other points for my stitching allowance. So I have about 2.5 inches left on the base of my fabric. The 2.5 inches is what I'll be using for the basque waistline. So if you look at the thumbnail we're following, you see that it has a little bit of backs on the front area. So what I'll do is to just connect like this in a V shape, just to give me that basque effect. After doing that, I'll connect the sides, okay? So now that I'm done doing that, I'll go ahead and start cutting. So I'll cut out the back armhole first. I didn't go in by half an inch while cutting. I'll cut out the basque also, and then I'll cut out the neckline. So for the backs, you can decide whether you want it at the back too, okay? So if you don't want it at the back, all you have to do is to cut out the 2.5 inches from the back. So the back is going to be just straight. It's not going to have that basque effect, okay? So I decided to just leave mine and make both front and back have the basque. So I'm not going to trim it off. So after doing that, I'll go ahead and trim off the back neckline because my fabric is folded on each other. I'll trim the shoulder, leaving about half an inch for my joining allowance since I'm doing a freehand method. So I went ahead to cut out the back neckline. After doing that, I'll mark my zipper allowance, which is 1.5 inches, and I'll give it a notch. That is because I want to know where to fix my zipper. I'll repeat the same thing on the base also. I'll come in by my 1.5 inches and I'm going to notch. So after doing that, I'll trim off the front armhole. I'm coming in now by the half an inch, and then I'll trim off the neckline like this. So the next thing I'll do now is to go ahead and mark my darts. If you're using a non-stretchy fabric, you're going to mark your darts. So first of all, you come down from your bust point by 1 inch. After doing that, you are going to mark half of your nipple to nipple measurement. So the half of the nipple to nipple measurement I'm working with is 4 inches. You can see that I already have 4 inches straight line on the fabric. So all you have to do is to connect straight down. So you mark 4 inches and you connect it. This is the same way you take in your darts, okay? So from the waistline, you're going to go down by 1.5 inches or 2 inches. That is how long your darts should be. So I went down by 2 inches. I'm going to connect all the way to the 1 inch that I came down with, just like this. After doing that, you are going to take half an inch on both sides of the straight line. Then you're going to connect upward and you connect downward. So you repeat the same thing on the other side. You also repeat the same thing on the back, but my fabric is really stretchy, so I'm not going to be taking any darts for my dress, okay? So what I'll do now is to open the front piece up, and I'm going to go ahead and cut out my facing. So I'll place my scrap fabric right side facing right side. As you can see, I'll pin all the way, and then I'll go ahead and just trace out the same thing that I have on the main fabric, okay? The shoulders, the neckline, and then I'll just trim it off a bit because I don't want it to be too wide. Now that I have this, I'll go ahead and sew. I'll notch and I'll use my hemming gum to hold it down. If you're taking in your darts, go ahead and take your darts at this point and also give it a good press. So I'm going to also cut out facing for the back, as you can see me doing, okay? Make sure everything aligns. After doing that, you're going to arrange the facing in place, right side facing right side. And if you have enough fabric to cut out your lining piece, you can just use your lining to turn everything to the right side, okay? So I'll just pin. I'll head over to my sewing machine. I'll sew. After sewing, I'll notch, and then I'll use my hemming gum to just hold everything down on the wrong side. I've gone ahead to do that, and this is what I have. This is my back piece. I used my iron to also iron the zipper allowance, so when I'm taking my zipper in, when I'm sewing my zipper, sorry, it's going to be very easy for me. I also went ahead to iron air stay to the zipper allowance because my fabric is really stretchy. I don't want my zipper to start bulging. So what I'll do now is to go ahead and just sew my zipper in place. Next thing I'll do now is to cut out my sleeves. So I have about 19.5 inches here, which I will be completing using the flare on the sleeves. So the first thing I will do is to fold my fabric into 4 because I want to cut both front and back piece together. On this end, I'm going to go down by about 5 inches, as you can see. After doing that, I'll use my ruler to connect in a slant from the center of the sleeves to that 5 inches like this. After doing that, I'm going to place my tape on this slanted line and I'll mark the middle. To do that, you measure the slanted line and you fold your tape roll into 2, then you mark the center, as you can see me doing. After marking the center, I'll do like a C and a D. So on the upper part of the sleeves, I'm going to use my chalk to mark like a D, and then on the lower part I'll do like a C. Okay, so after doing that, I'm going to measure it around to make sure it's enough to go around the armhole area of my dress, and then you're going to add the necessary allowance, okay? So after doing that, I'm going to mark the 2 inches allowance just like I have on the side of the dress, so everything will match up. Then you're going to go down by about 5 inches or 4 inches. Then you place your round sleeves circumference divided by 2. Okay, after placing that, you are also going to add the necessary allowance, okay, so you don't run short of fabric. So on the base of the sleeves, you're going to measure around your wrist, divide what you have by 2, and then you add your allowance, okay? So I'm going to do that on the base. After doing that, I'll connect just like you see me doing, and I'm going to cut out the excess fabric. After cutting out the sleeves, we'll also be cutting out the flay on the end of the sleeve. So I want to do a 360 degrees flay. I first of all folded my fabric into two. Now I folded it into another two, and then I'm folding it again. So this fabric altogether is folded into 8, okay? So this part is all folded, and this part you can see the open ends on this part. So what I'll do is to go down by 2.5 inches. So I didn't use anything to calculate this circle, okay? I'm just freestyling. If it's too much, I'm going to pleat it to the main sleeves, okay? So I'm going down from this end by 2.5 inches. I'm going to mark the 2.5 inches around like this, and I'll connect the dots in a circular form. After doing that, you're going to determine the length of your flay. So I'm doing about 6 inches. So I'm going to mark 6 inches all the way around like this, okay? So we're cutting out a full flay, a full circle flay. So I'm going to cut like this. I'm going to connect as you can see me doing, and then I'll cut off the excess fabric, okay? So this flay does not have any joining, okay? So you can split it open and cut out your lining piece, but if you don't have enough fabric to cut out your lining piece, you can hem all the way around, or you can overlock. So it depends on what you want to do. So after doing that, you pleat it to the base of the main sleeve to complete the length of your sleeves, okay? So for me, I'll cut out another one which I'll be using for my lining. Then I'll split it open, I'll sew all the way around, and then I'm going to sew it to the base of my sleeves, okay? So I've gone ahead to sew my zipper in place, and this is what I have. So the next thing I'll do now is to join both front and back piece together. So make sure you have either hemmed the neckline, or you have used your facing or bias to just pipe everything and make it clean. So place both front and back piece together, right side facing right side. I'll pin the shoulders just like you see me doing. I'll head over to my sewing machine to use half an inch to sew the shoulders, and then I'll fix my sleeves, and then I'll sew the side. So for the side, remember I left 2 inches as my stitching allowance, so I'm going to sew the side using the 2 inches all the way down. After fixing the sleeves and sewing the sides, this is what I have. So I left opening on the sleeves area to be able to sew the flay part of the sleeves to the main sleeves. So all you have to do now is to hem the base and just sew it in place, or you cut out your lining piece, turn the sleeves to the right side, and then you sew. So the next thing is to cut out the down part of the dress. So I used 2 yards of dusters for the down part. So you first of all have to measure the base of your dress, okay? You'll be using this to cut out what you'll be needing for the circular effects. I don't know what it's called. So whatever you measure, you're going to times it by 2, by 3, by 4, by 5, depending on how full you want the base of your dress to be, okay? So just measure around where you'll be fixing the balloon, and then times it by 3, 4, 5, 6, depending on how full you want it to be. So to know the length of your dress, you're going to take out the upper bodice. My upper bodice was 20 inches minus the basque, okay? So I took out 20 inches, and what I have is 37 inches. So the length of my dress is going to be 37 inches. So the balloon that I have here is 18 inches. This is the main fabric. We'll be cutting out our lining piece. The wideness, like I said, times it by 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, depending on the amount of fabric you have. So I multiplied mine by 3, okay? So if you have 50, you can times it by 3, times it by 4, times it by 5. You can see the joining on my fabric. That is because I had to join lots of fabric together to get the length that I want. So now that I have the length that I want, what I'll do now is to cut out the lining piece. So this is the fabric I'll be using for the lining piece. So the lining should be shorter than the main piece, okay? So my main piece was 18 inches. I reduced the lining by 2 inches. So the lining is 16 inches. And for the wideness of the fabric, I made it times 2 instead of times 3. So the main fabric is times 3, while the lining piece is times 2. I didn't make the main fabric and the lining piece to be the same because I want to be able to gather the main piece to the lining piece, so it will have that circular effect. So this is my lining piece, right? I opened it to the right side. So I'm going to place the main piece on the lining piece, right side facing right side. So what I'll do is to gather the main piece to the lining piece. So the main piece, I'm going to gather it to fit the lining piece. I hope you understand. So you can pleat it, you can gather it depending on what you want, but make sure it fits the lining piece. Okay, just go ahead and gather. So as you can see, I've gone ahead to gather both of them together, and this is what I have. I gathered the main piece on the lining piece to make the main piece the same size with this lining piece. I hope you understand. So after gathering, I went ahead to sew them together, and this is what I have. So this is the reason why I reduced the main piece by 2 inches, because I want to fold, sorry, the lining piece by 2 inches, because I want to fold the main piece inward by 2 inches. So the next thing I'll do is to arrange both of them together, and I'll just gather everything all at once. I've gone ahead to do that, and this is what I have. So you can see the inside. The main piece is folded inward, okay, and it's going to be hidden inside, and you can see the upper part which I gathered together. So I gathered both the lining and the main fabric together. So the next thing I'll do now is to fold the two like this, as you can see, and I'm going to arrange them in place. So make sure you arrange and then you use your pins to just hold everything down, okay. So after pinning all the way to the end, you are going to place your tape on the upper parts, okay, and you are going to measure the exact measurement that you have on the upper bodice, okay. What you measured earlier, place it here, okay. So remember, it's folded into two, so you are going to place it here and you sew the excess inward, okay. So you are going to use your chalk to mark it, because we want this to align with the upper bodice, and you're going to sew all the way down. I've gone ahead to sew, and this is what I have. This is the skirt part, okay. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to bring in my upper bodice, and I'm going to place them like this, right side facing right side, as you can see. So you are going to match the joining on the skirt at the back to the joining of the upper bodies at the back. Open them up and then match them together, as you can see me doing, okay. Just go ahead and match them together and you pin. Then you are going to pin the center, okay. You can notch the center of your skirt, then you pin everything all the way, as you can see me doing. After doing that, you go ahead and sew, and then you overlock. After sewing, guys, this is what I have, okay. This is what it also looks like at the back. So you are going to fix your flare to the base of your main sleeves, and you are going to give your dress a good press. So that is all for this tutorial. I hope it was helpful. Don't forget to like this video, leave your questions in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.